to also have Madam Njoki Kahiga speaking to this particular topic. So maybe before I start, there could be some remarks from Kantai, anything that needs to go into record. Listen out. If not,
thank you, Beatrice. I think maybe we could just proceed by past calling on Ms. Catherine to maybe say something if she has anything to share. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Actually, first and foremost, just to wish everybody a happy new year. I am glad we are gathered here once again to start drinking from the well of knowledge of Njoki and everybody around this room. Thank you for making it today. This is our very first event this year, and I'm really looking forward to your participation, everybody, looking forward to exchanging ideas and learning from each other. And so let me end there and just wish you a great evening ahead, a great webinar, and also the very best in 2023 in your personal life, in your board life, in your family life, the very best. Thank you very much.
Asante sana, Madam Catherine. Indeed, it's always drinking from the wealth of knowledge around ourselves. They always say that iron sharpens iron, so it's always good to gather around, to listen out to each other. Have, wonderful ladies joining us to various topics. Thank you so much, always Women on Board, for organizing the wonderful. So my name is Beatrice Matiri. I will be taking you the moderator for today's program. And I really look forward to this wonderful topic on human capital. I know we never can hear enough around human capital and workforce. Just now, we're really talking about trends in the world, global trends, especially around technology and how it is shaping the way we do work. So what a wonderful topic to actually start the year on a very high note. And what a wonderful speaker as well to be hosting us for today. So Madam Njoki Kahiga, we are very grateful to have you today, and we welcome you so warmly. I may not sure whether I can do justice to the entire introduction of yourself. I listened to you out in Mombasa, and I can tell you, it's so remarkable listening out to you. Cannot not just forget, your expressions and the way you went around the topic that you were talking about, and the confidence and the demeanor that you actually really showed as you went throughout the topic. So, and I think for me, as I listened out to you in Mombasa, it was very clear that maybe private sector boards and public sector boards are very different. And I believe as we listen now today, it's going to be quite a lot of more insights, getting to know the differences in the human capital and the workforce. So Njoki has over 30 years experience and expertise in public service management, policy formulation and governance acquired as a public officer. She has served in various boards and councils and been involved in thought leadership, speaking engagements on women in leadership, women empowerment, management, human resource development. She's also a trainer and a professional mediator. Njoki holds a Master of Science in Human Resource Management, so really point on in terms of the topic that she's actually speaking today, and a Bachelor of Education and Postgraduate Qualification in Advanced Management. Currently, she is the chairperson of the Women Enterprise Fund, a semi-autonomous government agency mandated to facilitate affordable credit and build capacity for women entrepreneurs. Those of us that attended the conference that was in Mombasa last year, you listened out to Njoki, and I am sure that we have not even forgotten a bit of what she actually spoke about and how she challenged us during the meeting. So what an honor to welcome you, Njoki, to speak to us this evening.
So thank you very much, Beatrice. Thank you for the great introduction. Let me start by making one correction, just in case I am told I'm impersonating. I have since left the Women Enterprise Fund, and I'm now the chairperson of the Kenya School of Government. I think we did not adjust that aspect in my very short CV. So I am currently the chairperson of the Kenya School of Government. The Kenya School of Government is a school which is responsible for empowering public service through capacity building, through research, through consultancy, and through very many other activities that empower the public service. That is where I am for, I think this is my sixth month, and it is a pleasure to be in the school. Now, regarding today's topic, I must say it's a great honor and privilege to have been invited to share my experiences and thoughts on this very critical topic on human capital and workforce issues in the public service, especially in public service boards. As much as boards in the private sector and the public, and the public service are generally the same because there are issues of governance, you discover there are a few changes, especially when it comes to issues of promotions, when it comes to issues of remuneration. We will start today's topic by stating that this is an area most boards ignore. And they ignore it in the false belief that management is professional enough to ensure the workforce is well taken care of for purposes of producing, producing results so that an organization is able to achieve its results. I think I want us to start from that point of view that many boards ignore issues of human resource, and they believe that the management should do a very thorough job because after all, management is very professional and they are going to do the job they are supposed to do. This is not where we should begin. In my view, there is nothing magical about being an effective board, a board member. All you actually need to do is reflect back to your employment days. If you are still in employment or if you are an employer, you reflect back to the days when you are an employee and pick out some of the things you kept asking yourself. I wish somebody could know that this is happening in this organization. This, in my view, is the starting point of being an effective board member. Reflecting back when you are an employee, if you are ever an employee, or if you are currently an employee, just go through what you go through as an employee. Pick out some of the things you really disturb you and the things you think are not properly done in issues of HR. Pick them out, and there are many. There are issues of career development, there are issues of discipline, there are issues of welfare, there are issues of training, there are issues sometimes of incompetent supervisors who, because they know they are incompetent, don't want to listen to your ideas. And they'll make it very difficult for you to ever get anywhere or for you to be able to contribute to the goals of the organization. For me, because this is an experience sharing point, this is something which has really helped me. I pick out the things I saw were not being, the HR issues I saw were not being done properly. And as a board member, both as a chair and as a board member, I have been a board member, especially in public entities, in quite a number. I think I have sat in almost all public universities as a council member and in other boards. And through that experience, you are able to pick out quite a number of things. So this is something which has really informed me As I sit as a council member or as a chair, I use my experiences as an employee to see when there are promotions which are coming over. Could there have been somebody who was superseded and they have no way, or the council has no way, or the board has no way of ever knowing? And therefore, you ask for the necessary information. How many people were supposed to be vying for this position? What are their qualifications? Is there somebody who is superseding the other? That and that and that. If you're in the private sector, issues of remuneration becomes important. Are we moving the direction of every other industry or every employer in our industry? So use those things or use those experiences to apply them when you become a board member. And this is the reason why I say there is nothing magical about being an effective board. The other thing which has helped me to a very great extent is that I am convinced that everybody should start by recognizing and realizing that the workforce in any organization is made up of human beings. And I will repeat the word human beings. An organization is made up of human beings. They are not furniture, they are not equipment, they are not vehicles, they are not the computers that you use. They are human beings. And what does it mean to be human beings? It means very many things. These are individuals with feelings, feelings which can be hurt, feelings which can be improved by however you treat them. These are human beings with expectations. These are human beings who think. They think. You know, a chair doesn't think. If you want to change the way you sit, you simply take a chair and place it on the left, or you place it on the left. It will not tell you, no, I don't want to sit that way. Human beings think, and they will wonder where you are giving them an office at the corner next to the toilet, because they think, they rationalize. Human beings have dignity. They have a conscience. They see, they hear, they observe. You know, they use all the senses. And they also have skills. They have knowledge, they have expertise, they have competences, and they have experience. So as a board member, your work is to direct their humanness in the right direction and exploit their skills to enable them give you the best. That is all you are supposed to do. The minute you realize they are human beings and they are not desks, and they do all the things that I have mentioned, you will become a better board member, because you are dealing with human beings. They think, they have feelings, they have expectations, and all those things put together. All you need to do is direct them in the right direction. And human beings will give you their best. There is no doubt about it. I like talking about managing by putting yourself in the shoes of the others. That doesn't cease when you become a board member. And the minute you're able to recognize what I have just said, is occasionally you put yourself in the shoes of the other and you realize that there could be a few things which were not right, because you know organizations are organizations and they are made up of human beings. So what would you generally do? One of the things and one of the starting points I always emphasize is the fact that you must have a very, very effective human resource committee in the board. Why do I say this? I say this because at the board level, you know, the meeting is just about 2 hours. That somebody has been done for you. The committees come and they tell you, we propose this and we seek the approval of, we recommend to the board that you approve this. You do not know a lot of information or the genesis of what you are being told to recommend or to approve. So what does it mean? It means that if you have a human resource committee which is not effective, the board will be a complete failure. And there must be some rationale as to why boards have committees. It is because the whole of the board cannot sit to do due diligence to whatever needs to be done. So the committees work on your behalf. So if you are a chairman like I am, it behoves on you to frequently be able to talk to the committee of the chairperson of the human resource committee and be able to find out, have you asked this? Have you asked this? Have you clarified this? Do you have information on those? As a committee member or as a council member, your work is to ask as many questions as management cannot answer. Let management know that there is a board. Let management know that if they don't do due diligence to whatever they are supposed to be, they will sweat in the meeting. A board which never makes management sweat is a board which needs to ask themselves questions because, and I'll say this from experience, management will tell you what you want to hear. Management will give you the information which appears like it suits what you ask for. And because you are not there from Monday to Friday, you really don't know what happens. But the committee will ask the necessary questions so that they are able to advise the board that this is not right, we did this, we did our homework, and we were able to find out that this exactly is not what is going on. And you discover that this becomes exceedingly very, very, very helpful. What is the next thing that is very important after you have ensured that there is a proper committee which does due diligence and which asks the necessary questions? The other thing you need to do is to ensure that there are proper policies governing the HR function. Do not and never leave anything to chance. You must be able to say, which are the human resource policies which govern recruitment? You see, the committee could have asked on your behalf, but you must ensure there are policies that govern the human resource, because in the absence of proper policies, anything goes. If you don't have a recruitment policy which clearly states how you will recruit, how you will retain, how you will exit, the norm will be people who do not or who do not qualify to be in your organization, you find room in your organization. People who are good and should be in the organization will be brought to the disciplinary committee because they are asking too many questions, not because they don't perform. And they'll be exited as you sit there calling yourself chairman or a board member. So have policies which govern every aspect of the human resource in an organization. There is a policy which governs the career advancement and career progression of people in the organization. I must say that in government, this is very clear. Okay, a few things keep changing every so often. But in a nutshell, there is no organization like an organization called government. It has very, very clear policies on literally everything. And people will only break them because they want to break them, not because there is a vacuum. There is a way in government, you know, for me to move from this job grade to the next, I must have these years of experience, I must have acquired this, I must have proved this, I must have done that. I think this is where a few differences come in with the private sector. I have come across private sectors where promotion is to some extent dependent on who knows who. If the most senior manager in HR is related to you, somehow they are able to take shortcuts and you soon become the senior manager. So it is very important to have a policy which guides how do people progress in this organization. And they move to the next grade if they proved very good. That is promotion on merit. Promotion on merit because they have performed so well, they are beyond everybody else. It mustn't be like the government where we say you must have done, but there must be a policy which governs career development of that. There must be a policy which governs training and capacity building in an organization. Reason, that is the only way there can be unity in an organization, in the sense that you don't just have a few people who get trained and everybody else never gets an opportunity to get trained. If it is training out of the country where they are able to get per diem, it is only Josephine and Joyce and Wairimu who are given those opportunities because there is no policy which governs the training and capacity building in that organization. I don't want to go into details of what policies need to be there. I guess a number of you are familiar with HR. Just ensure that there are enough policies. I mean, policies on literally everything that happens in that organization, because that is the only way to go, and that is the only way to be able to be fair. Policies on issues on remuneration. Who gets what remuneration? Who gets a bonus? Who doesn't get a bonus? Most importantly, because this is where organizations score highest, performance management becomes very key. You don't want joyriders. They are there, they don't do anything. There is no policy where you know who gets evaluated in what way, who performs and who doesn't perform. People who do perform and everybody knows they do perform, because there is a performance management tool in that organization, because the buck stops at performance in an organization. It is purely results. The other is a process. People have got to perform and people have got to do what they need to do for purposes of doing what they do. So that becomes very, very important. And when it comes to looking at whether you are looking at an organization or whether you are looking at a specific aspect of the organization, like the human resource, ensure that there is a strategy, there is a structure of the HR, so that HR is not put at the bottom of the hierarchy. If it is put at the bottom of the hierarchy, it shows how unimportant it is in an organization. So there must be a strategy, there must be a structure who speaks very loudly that the human resource and in this organization is very important. There must be systems that enable the HR perform and do their job. There must be enough staff to do the job. They must have the right skills. And generally speaking, there must be what we call the shared values in an organization. Shared values in an organization is the culture of an organization. The culture of an organization is, again, not anything to seriously think about. We all know that culture is the way we do things around here. How do we do things around here in HR? We are very helpful. When requests for leave come, we process them very fast. When it is pay time, we pay them by 25th. When it comes to taking to administrative justice, people who have disciplinary cases are always heard and they are listened to, because you never know what is behind that. In every organization and in every subsystem of an organization, there must be these things we are talking about. There must be shared values in HR, the way we do things around HR, because this is what the board you depend on, that things are done properly and they are done effectively and they are done within the way they are supposed to be done for purposes of doing that. During your free time, go and find out about McKinsey 7Ss, McKinsey 7Ss, and it will guide you on how the 7Ss, McKinsey 7Ss, are so critical in the management of an organization or a subsystem. What you look for, that you look for a system in an organization, you look for a strategy in an organization, you look for a structure, you look for systems, you look for staff, you look for skills, you look for shared values. This is what will drive the board. Who gets what and who gets it when, because the board is there to provide oversight. It cannot go to the details of how things are getting done in an organization, and therefore they have got to be informed about this, and only the committee can tell them about that. Kantai, I think you would have to tell me at what point I am supposed to be allowing people to start asking questions. But before you stop me, I will proceed. And please give me 1 second to put on the lights. So we are talking about the role of boards, public boards. And some of the differences in public service boards is the fact that in all public service boards, they do not set their salary grades, and their salary issues of remuneration are generally external. You all know that we have a Salaries and Remuneration Commission, which gives the badge insofar as payment is concerned. So if you are entering into a public service entity as a CEO, it clearly states this is where you should enter, and you should not enter beyond the mid-grade. So public service boards have very little negotiation power insofar as salaries are concerned. This is completely different from the private sector. I have never worked in the private sector, but I'm currently sitting in a private sector board, and I can tell you with all uncertainty that your ability to negotiate a salary is so important and key that you negotiate for a salary and you get 500,000. The same person you negotiate for a salary and they get 300. It depends on your negotiation skills and possibly where you are coming from. This is not the case. It's one of the major differences in the public service. That in the public service, when it comes to matters of who gets what, it is seen black and white. Black and white in the sense that you enter here and you exit here and there is no more negotiations. The flexibility there could be is that if you are so highly skilled, you can enter into another level beyond where the ordinary folk enter. That is one of the major differences. The other thing I would wish to point out from my experience in the boards are issues of discipline. You'll find a disciplinary case brought to a disciplinary process has taken through, and through, it is so unfair you can shed tears when you get to the bottom of the matter. So learn to give employees the opportunity to get heard. An employee will come to the board when given an opportunity to get heard. Do you want to control your tears because you are really wondering why in the first place was this case brought to taken for discipline? Because it is nothing else but malice, disagreements between the boss and the immediate whatever. It's a great performer who is outshining the boss, and therefore the boss is more comfortable than whatever. So trap cases are made, and the case ends up in the board. I'll give you an example in one of the, not where I am the chairperson, in one of the boards that I sit, we had to discipline the deputy. We had to give a letter of warning to the head of HR for bringing up cases which do not meet the threshold to the board. They would simply be brought a case and told, this person did not come to work, I don't know where, this person is generally very rude, this person doesn't get along with whatever, and the person is transferred to one corner of the country to the other part of the country, leaving a whole family. When you get to the bottom of the matter, when you listen to the person, you can tell from the very beginning that this is nothing but pure malice. So I always advise, no, sorry, I don't advise. I always propose to a board, if you sit in the HR committee, make sure you give disciplinary cases the opportunity to be heard. It is provided for in the labor laws. It is good practice. It is a part of the administrative justice because it gives you an insight into what is happening in the organization. There is, this is the reason why we are not getting results, because staff who are not comfortable, staff who are not working in an environment conducive to working, cannot give you the results that you are looking for. So if you let them be, I would say, unduly harassed by their immediate supervisors, you never get results. And you keep asking at the end of the year, why are we not performing? The staff are so demoralized, not because they don't have a good salary, not because they don't have a sitting area which is airy and very modern equipment, but because they have bosses who are impossible. They are not letting them give their best. And this is what happens in quite a number of the organizations. Staff leave not because the organization, the employer is bad, but because their immediate supervisor or the working environment is toxic. How do you get to know this? You get to know this by listening to a number of disciplinary cases where they tell you, oh no, this is this. And in confidence, you are able to do this. So both in the major difference here between the public and the private sector is the fact that in the public sector, doubtlessly there is a mechanism. Before you sack a senior officer, you must go through the entire process of proving that they actually did not do whatever. In some private sector organizations, whether I am not very sure the board doesn't know, or they haven't grasped their role in HR, very good staff exit. In this day and age, you will be taken to the labor court, and the labor court is so very, very sympathetic to employees, and you pay a lot of money. I happen to be a mediator with the court. I am a mediator with Milimani Court, and I deal with quite a number of labor cases. And you find cases where somebody has sued the employer for what you call constructive termination. Constructive termination is where an employee renders her resignation. His or her own resignation, not for any other reason, because they have been so frustrated in that organization, has been denied promotion, is sexually harassed. The immediate boss is one great nightmare, and they are forced into a corner and they resign. If they take you to court for constructive termination, you will pay damages. I know the onus is on the person who resigned to prove I had no other choice but to resign because I was going to go mad. They never let me breathe. They never give me an opportunity to do this and this and this. As much as it is very difficult to prove constructive exit or termination, it is there in this day and age. And the court, you look at all the matters and tell you, oh yes, you forced Njoki into resigning because you thought she was a threat and this is that and that and that. So these are some of the things which are very, very important. Also very important to pay particular attention to what we call, what do I call it? Contracts. You see, there are written contracts and there are what we call psychological contracts. The psychological contracts are those things in an organization which are not written down. They are not in black and white. And you remember I talked about at the beginning of my sharing, I said, human beings have expectations. Even employers have expectations. Not all expectations are written down. A contract only, the contract you get highlights the major issues of pay, time, whatever. They never go into the details to tell you that when you get employed here, we expect you to respect each other. We expect you to respect your boss. We expect you to work very well in whatever. We expect you not to tell nasty things about your organization. These are some of the psychological contracts in organizations where they are not written down, but they are expected. I expect you to respect me as a human being and treat me as a human being, not as a desk. This will never be in your contract, the one you signed with the organization, but it's a contract, it's a psychological contract. And these things come in, especially when you talk about constructive termination. They will say there was so much disrespect and it was exhibited through A, B, C, and D, and it will be listened to. And that becomes very, very important that the board is aware of these things. And this is the reason why I keep repeating things that I started by saying. This is the reason why I said from the very beginning that the board should start from the premise that staff, the workforce in an organization, the human capital, the human resource in an organization are human beings. The minute you appreciate that, that becomes very important because it is your bottom line. And therefore, everything else that you're going to do is going to revolve around this. And at this point, I will request that either Beatrice or Kantai will tell me up to what time I'm supposed to stop for purposes of asking questions, because like I told you in Mombasa, speaking is my other name. I can talk forever, amen. Yes, Beatrice.
That is very well, thank you, Commissioner Kahiga. You have about 13 more minutes. We expect you to be speaking up to 7:25 before we can go into our breakaway sessions. Thank you very much.
So up to 7:25.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I'll make sure that I keep time. Yes, the other thing that is very important, not only in, I would say in public and private boards, but I think it is good governance in whether it is in public or in private organizations, is the fact that the boards appreciate that their role is oversight. And I want to repeat that. The role of the board is oversight. Let there not be interference with management. And this happens quite a bit. In public boards, in private organizations, where the chairman of the board wants to behave like the CEO in an organization. Woe unto you if that happens, because it interrupts the flow of work in an organization. Because you can imagine if you are a chair who is permanently in the organization, the CEO has got to make a point of ensuring that, oh, you are comfortable wherever you are, instead of being able to do the things that they are supposed to do. So whether it doesn't matter which committee you sit in or whatever, overall, it is very, very important for the board members to know that their work, their role is oversight. Allow the CEO space to work. Stop giving unnecessary instructions and demands, because the CEO will divert from the attention they give to the organization in order to meet your demands. And most of those demands are not necessarily the best things that they can. How does this relate to staff or to the human capital? It relates to the human capital in the sense that you will find some boards, some members of the board who do not stick to their lane. We'll keep speaking to some members of management, asking for this information, asking for this, asking them to do this and be. That is, if you want to be a board member, exceedingly unprofessional. You only get to staff through the CEO. That is the only way to keep harmony and sanity in an organization. Otherwise, you interfere with the day-to-day running of the organization. You are going to interfere with staff, because the staff you are calling to give you this information doesn't know whether they should actually be able to give you that organization, or they should first go to the CEO and ask this. If you are a professional board member, stick to your lane. Which is your lane? Your lane is oversight. You are not involved in the day-to-day running of the organization. You provide oversight. You provide strategic direction. Strategic direction in an organization is given through the strategy you have in an organization. I guess every organization has a strategic plan. This is where the board belongs. Participate in developing the strategic plan of the organization so that you give strategic direction of where the organization is going to go. Participate in the strategic development of your strategy of your organization so that you impress on the organization the role you want HR to play in that organization. You do not want a HR where the senior most organization is chief manager. Everybody else is a director level, because you are communicating a message. You are saying HR is not very important in this organization, and this is why it is headed at a much lower organization, or where HR is combined with 100 and other irrelevant issues in an organization. You will be sending a message, and the message is, as much as it is not the computers and the desk that work, it is the people who operate the desk and the computers to work. They are not this important. Stick to your lane. If you are a board member, if you are a professional member, ask questions during the board meetings that give you the information you require. Don't go behind the CEO for purposes of getting the information, unauthorized information. You have the right for information, and therefore you can ask for it. The other very important thing, and it relates to that, is organizations which do very well is where the CEO and the board, and especially the chairperson of the board, have a general understanding on where they are going and how to operate. Where you find antagonism, where you find CEO and the chairman of the board almost going to a physical fight, the staff in that organization are not animals of another nature. They get to know and they exploit that disharmony. They know the chair and the CEO don't get along. And in between, they will do what they need to do. And guess some of the things that happen in an organization when that happens? Staff are busy moonlighting as opposed to doing what they are doing. This is not only in, most of my experience have been in running organizations. I mean, in academic organizations, where you find instead of the lecturers and the professors doing what they are supposed to do, because they know the CEO and the whatever don't get along, and that is how it affects the human capital in an organization, they are busy making money elsewhere. Before these two agree and they know that this is what we are doing, we will make our money. So who suffers? Productivity in an organization suffers when the CEO and the chairman of the board or the board do not see eye to eye. Create a harmonious relationship between the two parties, and the organization you go into a honeymoon you have never seen. It is only for the benefit of the organization this happens. Keep to your lane, and everybody knows what they are supposed to do. Do not get into the business of poking your nose into everything that is not happening, because that is not your area. So this is how some of the boards deal with the human capital in an organization. If you don't take enough interest in the staff, they lose focus. They start doing their own things. If they are not physically out of the organizations, they are seated on their desk and they have their computer in front of them, but they are doing all manner of consultancies online. They have been ignored. They are not properly supervised. And this is another thing of having proper supervision in an organization. They know nobody will get to know. Their targets are not clear. Anything goes. So when they sit in the office, you think they are working. And in this day of the youth getting contracts and jobs from anywhere in the world, they are busy doing and making their own money and not doing whatever they are doing. You are to blame because you haven't put systems in place to ensure that people do the job they are supposed to be doing when they are in the office. And this is something else possibly I should have mentioned when I said you should have proper policies. The other thing you should have in any organization for purposes of staff is having the proper systems in place to monitor performance in an organization, so that somebody doesn't sit on their desk and they are doing their own thing and nobody gets to know. Somebody is not absent or somebody is doing what they are never expected to do in an organization and nobody gets to know. People come late to the office. Nothing happens. So even those others who used to come on time realize, oh, you mean I can even come at 9 o'clock and nothing happens? Because supervision is either very lax or there is favoritism in an organization. You must be able to lead by example if you are the supervisor, so that people don't start realizing, oh, you mean even if I come at 6 and somebody else comes at 9, the difference is the same? So you can still do a few things. So put proper systems in place to monitor HR. Some have the clocking in. Clocking in is not good enough. You come and sit, have a system where you can know people when they are doing their own jobs in the organization and not doing whatever they do. Have a performance management tool which appraises people, which sets targets, and that there is generally productivity in that organization. And people will be able to deliver what they are expected to deliver. In the absence of that, and that is the responsibility of the board, what did I tell you the board does? Take an interest, sit in during the development of the strategic the strategic plan of the organization so that you say, no, the human resource has not been adequately dealt with in this strategic plan. It is not taking us to where we want to go. So let's recast that, let's do that. If you sit and wait for the strategic plan to be done by who you call the professionals, and you just come the last minute to either agree or point out a few things you should have pointed out, it becomes very difficult. So my conclusion on the issues of human resource is simple. What I started by saying, do not let or leave issues of human resource to management only. It is your responsibility. Behave and act like a human being and know the people you are superintending are human beings and try as much as possible to treat them so. Ensure you have policies in an organization for literally everything, from welfare to recruitment, to mention anything, they are there. Ensure there is administrative justice in an organization where everybody is given an opportunity to be listened to, not for the sake of it. Listening to people who have been disciplined, like I said, gives you a lot of insight into what is happening in an organization, something you will never get to know. Put systems in place for the entire organization and even for the HR so that things are done in a systematic way and they get to know that. If you have time to use the McKinsey 7 S's, it guides you in knowing what should you be looking out for any subsystem in an organization and in a whole organization. It is that the organization has a strategy, the organization has a structure, the organization has systems in place, the organization has the necessary staff, and the organization has the necessary skills and competencies required for productivity. The organization has proper style of management. You remember what I said about supervisors who are insecure. The management style that they are going to employ will scare anything that exists. So make sure the style of management in an organization is a professional style which brings out the best of people. And finally, make sure that the shared values in that organization, the shared values being the culture of an organization, the culture of an organization being the way we do things here, that in HR, we are very courteous. In HR, there is speed. In HR, there is fairness. In HR, we don't discriminate. In HR, we give people an opportunity to be heard. In HR, we process pension and gratuity and people go home with their package. In HR, we prepare people for retirement. This is the way we do things around here. And even the board knows HR is an exception in everything that we do. I wish to stop there and allow Beatrice to facilitate the further contribution, input, questions, or whatever else is likely to come from the participants. I wish to thank you most sincerely for listening, and we will continue to share from what I hear from you. Thank you very much. I am 2 minutes short time, no 3.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Commissioner Njoki Kahiga, the Chairperson, Kenya School of Government, speaking to the issue of human capital and workforce issues in the public sector. We really truly grateful, Commissioner, for the insights. You know, some things you really have to be hands-on in practice to actually really get those kind of key insights and the intuitions that, you know, come with hands-on experience. And thank you so much for allowing us to ride on the shoulders of, you know, a giant like yourself in terms of looking through workforce issues, human capital issues in the public sector, which sometimes may truly be very different from the private sector. And I think one key thing that was really very new to me today was, you know, this constructive resignation. And I'm not sure I ever had anything like this before. And to note that very high damages if you're taken to court for issues like this, but also just also helping us to note that we shouldn't just leave the issues of HR to just the CEO and the organization themselves. We have a role as board members to actually take part in the strategic directive, strategic forming direction or strategic planning direction of the organization. We have a role to sit on there and to really be sure that those HR issues have actually a greater role to play, but also to just ensure that the way the shared values are inculcated within the organization, that actually they really speak to the value that the organization places to the HR issues. I think also very interesting was really just to see that alignment between the CEO and the chairman of the board, to just be sure that they're actually really aligned in clarity in terms of where the organization wants to go. Otherwise, then most of the HR people and people around the organizations will be moonlighting. I think was very interesting to hear it from Madam Kahiga himself, that so many of them will be busy doing contracts and running jobs around. And we've seen that in some of the organization. So ladies, I believe so many of us have got questions. They have got, you know, aspects that they would wish us to discuss further. So at this particular juncture, we would like to break out in 2 sessions, and we can be able to have a deep dive into the major issues that have been raised by Njoki Kahiga today. She's raised issues around the McKinsey 7 S's, issues around the strategic planning sessions and how we can take part there, issues around shared values, issues around, you know, not just leaving it to the CEO themselves. So will be great to hear feedback and to hear some of the issues and matters arising from the members, but also to be able to pick up any further questions where you would like Commissioner Njoki Kahiga to engage further. So she will be coming back and forth in the 2 groups within the next 30 sessions that we have. So after 30 minutes or around maybe 25 minutes, we'll come around here 5 minutes to 8 for the final briefing, and then we'll break out from today's session. Thank you so much. Our moderators during the breakthrough sessions are going to be our own Naomi, who is here with us this evening, and Naomi Njeri from the public sector has got pretty quite experience in issues around development organizations, corporations, but also the academia, having been a lecturer at Kenyatta University and currently working at the African Development Bank in Ivory Coast as a senior budget officer. So she will be running one of the panels that we will have at the breakout session. And we'll also have Rhoda, who's also highly experienced project facilities and supply chain management professional with over 30 years of progressive experience across different sectors, and has got diverse background in industries such as banking, academia, real estate, and pension funds. So thank you so much, Rhoda and Naomi. They will be collating each of our viewpoints, each of our questions, each of the issues that we want to engage on in the breakout session. So Kantai will automatically send us to 2 breakout sessions. So let's see where you will find yourself. And Madam Commissioner Kahiga will be coming to and from in each of the groups to just listen out to what we are speaking, and maybe to add her voice and and share much more to some of the issues that we'll be raising. Thank you so much, everyone. Kantai, over to you.
Thank you, Beatrice. We had an interesting session this evening, and we had a few questions that were well handled by the commissioner. And I think that our main takeaway as a group was on the issue of humanness, bringing that in the boardroom as a board member, and the issue of having good relationship with the CEO, especially the chair of the board, is something that we noted is critical. But at the same time, you also, as a board member, you should keep your hands out, maybe nose in, to smell things around, but not your fingers in or your hands, so that there is a clear segregation of duties between board members and management. The other thing that we discussed was on style of leadership. Sometimes, like Commissioner mentioned, it can be toxic in the workplaces because of maybe bad supervision or the style of management. But there was a question then, how as board members do you engage in terms of questioning those kind of management style? And Commissioner told us it's good to have policies, especially now with COVID and the hybrid operating models. It's good to have policies almost on everything. And there was a question on how much does board get involved in those policies, because we know the board operates at strategic level, but we also have to ensure that management has those operational policies on almost everything, so that the organization is running well. The other thing was on, especially on disciplinary cases. For example, if there's an issue between staff and management, and the staff would want to appeal to the board, what are the procedures to be followed? How does the staff get into the board? And there was suggestion of going through the HR committee, going through the ombudsman, or having whistleblowing policies. So the board should not close its eyes, especially on disciplinary issues. They should guide management, and if need be, even write letters to management. But then there was a question on maintaining that productivity, and not the board not to be seen as overturning management decisions. So my colleagues in the room, if I have missed something, maybe you can come in if we still have some time. It seems you are good, Beatrice. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. Let me call upon Chilande to present for group 2. Welcome, Chilande.
Thank you, Naomi. Let me not apologize for this. It's how God intended it, and it's at that time of the night. So you find me as God presented me to the world. We had a thank you. We had a very rich conversation that centered around 2 key things. We had a lot of experience sharing from the members of the group, where we did a deeper dive on issues around constructive dismissal or constructive termination, and just got a better understanding of what those circumstances would be, and how the board especially could come in, really the emphasis being on trying to lay the frameworks, the systems in place to allow us to not be faced by any of those circumstances. So things like exit interviews would be useful to address such kind of issues should it become, should matters be taken to court. We also had quite a bit of experience sharing around the differences between the public and the private sector, especially centering around how well we enforce policies. The private sector tends to ensure that most policies are in place and really also do what they can to enforce them. The devil is always in that particular detail. We also had quite a bit around the differences with integrity of conversations, matters arising. We talked a little bit about, we had an example of policies that were put in place around diversity, equity, and inclusion. But then when the board started interrogating a little bit further, it came to light that actually these were not being enforced. So a lot around experience sharing. And then we got some guidance on some 3 quick questions that we had. Many things, but 3 core issues. One is looking at, being emphasized to be professional, especially when dealing with dynamics between the CEO and the staff members. First and foremost, to avoid opening up the doors to always listen to staff going over the heads of the CEO, and ensure that we have clear systems of communication. What happens if you need to escalate an issue? We also talked a lot about policies, again, helping to address any conflicts that may happen. We pointed out 2 essential ones. So, for example, policies like sexual harassment would help to protect all the parties involved, policies around whistleblowing, clarifying what that might look like. We also had about, using things like internal audits to make sure policies are being enforced, taking advantage of things like staff and board retreats to understand more, about what is actually going on the ground with regards to staff welfare. We also talked quite a bit around CEO and chair conflicts. And I think the key message there that, Commissioner emphasized for us is to be bold, speak out. If you are the type of board member that goes onto a board and are fearing to speak because you either don't want to lose the privilege or the income, then this is not for you. So we also emphasized on using data, so performance management systems, letters of insubordination, all those things. So just basically have your audit trail in place to handle effectively issues of CEO and chair conflicts, either way, whether the CEO is the problem or the chair is the problem. And then where you see there's no conclusive issue that you've been recommending, just make sure that you always minute your voice of dissent for future. And then also we spoke a little bit about building your community of support or champions. I'm not going to say lobbying because sometimes it can be frowned upon, but basically do what you can to make sure you have more and more like-minded people on your end to help to push your agenda forward. The men are always super good at this, and we're also being encouraged to do that. So I think the key message then was just this requires a lot of boldness. This requires for us to not be afraid to point out issues that we see are going contrary. So, and use whatever framework you can to protect your standpoint. So things like, we talked a little bit about where we are on boards that are not adhering to gender equity, gender equality guidelines and things of that nature. So I think in general, we just need to be bold to do what is right. So, and colleagues can add on if I've missed out on anything else, but thank you.
Thank you very much, Shilande. Perhaps Rhoda has anything to share, to add onto your contribution. Rhoda?
Yes, I think she's captured most of it. Maybe the only thing that I could say to add on was the issue of creating channels for communication, so that if the CEO is rogue, you still can get that information without crossing the line and seeming to micromanage. Because then some staff can take advantage of that and start misinforming you, and you act on that. And then the issue of having the board that is not balanced, that the chair should then communicate to the CS so that's corrected, not as an accusation, but a suggestion or an observation that the board is not balanced. I think that's just about it.
All right.
And also using the audit committee and the HR committee to handle some of those issues. And also during trainings, you could again actually use opportunities like that for the presenter or facilitator to communicate to the staff that if they have issues, they can use whistleblowing, or they can, what mechanisms they are available to them in such cases, so that then they don't feel that they have to go over the CEO and go to the board members. I think that's about it.
Thank you very much, Rhoda. I would like to share my gratitude to the chairs that agreed to take up upon the responsibility to chair the breakaway rooms. Thank you so much for the facilitation and feedback. May I call upon Commissioner Njoki to then give our final remarks as we look into closing the program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you. I have also learned quite a bit. This is the essence of sharing experiences, that people have different experiences, and when shared, they actually really educate you and they give you a lot of insights as to what happens. I am sure quite a number of you sit in boards or they are hoping to sit in boards. It is a very, very good way of contributing to building our country. And I would actually encourage you to ensure that you sit in a board if you have never sat in a board. But like I said, don't sit in a board for the money that there is in boards. There is no money, especially in the public service boards. It is a sitting allowance, and you don't sit every other day. It is an opportunity to serve our great country. And like I said, if you go to the board without being very, very sure that you want to contribute and provide oversight, then think twice. You need to be courageous and bold enough to point out where things are not right. But don't be a complainer. Don't fail to see the good side of things. Balance and appreciate what needs to be balanced. People are very, very quick to notice a member who is fair. They point out things which are wrong and they praise the things that are right. And that is also part of HR. So thank you very much. Thank you for aspiring to sit in the boards. I would also say I like actually sharing my experiences. If you have an area, if you have an